May 26th, 1989. Anfield, Liverpool. 18 million people are watching on television. The entire nation holding its breath. Arsenal need to win by 2 goals at a stadium where they haven't won in 15 years. It's the 99th minute. They're only winning 1-0. Liverpool's Steve McMahon is holding up one finger to his teammates. 1 minute left. The title is theirs. But what happens next will go down as the greatest moment in Arsenal's history, and it will change English football forever. To understand this night, you have to understand what happened 6 weeks earlier. April 15th, 1989, Hillsborough Stadium, Sheffield. Liverpool were playing Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup semi-final. Thousands of fans packed into the Leppings Lane Terrace. And then, disaster. A fatal crush. Overcrowding. Police failure. 97 Liverpool supporters lost their lives. It was the worst disaster in British sporting history. The match was abandoned. Football stopped. The country wept. Liverpool's next 2 league games were postponed. Their scheduled match against Arsenal pushed back indefinitely. By the time the fixtures were rearranged, everyone realized something extraordinary. Liverpool versus Arsenal, now moved to May 26th, would be the last game of the season. First place versus second place. A title decider. Liverpool were the kings of English football. They had won 10 league titles in the previous 15 years. They had John Barnes, Peter Beardsley, Ian Rush, Alan Hansen, a team of legends. 6 days before the Arsenal match, they had beaten Everton to win the FA Cup. They were chasing the double. And Anfield was a fortress. Liverpool hadn't lost by 2 goals at home since February 1986. Over 3 years unbeaten by that margin. Arsenal? They hadn't won a single game at Anfield in 15 years, and now they needed to win by 2. Here's why. Liverpool were 3 points ahead with a better goal difference. If Arsenal won 1-0, Liverpool would still be champions. A draw? Liverpool. Even a 2-1 win? Liverpool. On goals scored. Arsenal needed to win 2-0, or 3-1, or 4-2. Anything by 2 clear goals. It seemed impossible. George Graham's Arsenal were different. They were young, they were hungry, and they had fire in their bellies. Tony Adams, just 22 years old, was the captain. A leader before his time. Lee Dixon, Nigel Winterburn, Steve Bold, David O'Leary. A back 4 built on steel and discipline. In midfield, David Rocastle, Rocky, the Lewisham boy who could dribble like a Brazilian, Michael Thomas, Paul Merson, Kevin Richardson, and up front, Alan Smith, the man who would have to score the goals. Arsenal hadn't won the league in 18 years, since 1971. An entire generation of fans had never seen their team lift the title. This was their chance, maybe their only chance. Before the game even started, Arsenal did something extraordinary. The players walked onto the Anfield pitch carrying bouquets of flowers. They separated. One by one, they went to all 4 corners of the stadium and gave the flowers to Liverpool fans. It was Ken Fryer's idea, Arsenal's club secretary, a gesture of respect for the 97 who had died at Hillsborough just 6 weeks before. The cop, Liverpool's famous singing end, fell silent. For a moment, football didn't matter. Arsenal also presented a check for £30,000 to the Hillsborough Disaster Fund. But when the whistle blew, the generosity ended. Now it was war. Before we get to what happens next, if you're enjoying this story, make sure you subscribe to at Football Untold 101. We tell the football stories that matter. Turn on notifications. And let's finish this together. George Graham had a plan. He played Steve Bold as a third center back. A 3-5-2 formation designed to frustrate, to suffocate, to make Liverpool's passing game impossible. And it worked. For 45 minutes, Arsenal tackled and blocked and counterattacked. They broke up every Liverpool move. They killed the rhythm of the game. The cop tried to sing their team forward, but Arsenal wouldn't let them. Then, a blow for Liverpool. Ian Rush pulled his groin after 32 minutes. He had to come off. Half-time, 0-0. Arsenal were still alive. 8 minutes into the second half. Free kick to Arsenal. Nigel Winterburn swings it in. Alan Smith, smudger, rises at the far post. Header, goal. 1-0 Arsenal. The 4,000 Arsenal fans crammed into the away end exploded. They could dare to dream. But the clock kept ticking. 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes, still 1-0. Liverpool started time wasting. Goalkeeper Bruce Grobbelaar took forever with every goal kick. Unnecessary back passes, deliberate fouls. They knew 1-0 wasn't enough for Arsenal. The title was still Liverpool's. 90 minutes. The fourth official holds up the board. 2 minutes of injury time. Steve McMahon, Liverpool's midfielder, looks at his teammates. He holds up one finger. 1 minute! He shouts, 1 minute! John Barnes and John Aldridge exchange a tag of their hands, a celebration. They think it's over. In the Arsenal end, silence. Fans with their heads in their hands. So close, so agonizingly close. Kevin Richardson goes down with cramp. The referee stops the game. More seconds tick away. And then, one final attack. John Lukic, Arsenal's goalkeeper, has the ball. He rolls it out quickly to Lee Dixon on the right. Dixon looks up. He clips a long ball forward. Alan Smith is there. He brings it down. Exquisite control. And flicks it forward. And Michael Thomas is running. A yellow blur charging through the Liverpool midfield. The ball bounces off Steve Nicol. It falls perfectly for Thomas. He's through on goal. Bruce Grobbelaar rushes out. Ray Houghton is chasing, getting closer, closer. And Brian Moore, commentating for ITV, says the words that will live forever. Thomas charging through the midfield. Thomas shapes to shoot. It's up for grabs now. He slips the ball past Grobbelaar. Thomas, goal, 2-0. 91 minutes and 22 seconds on the clock. Michael Thomas wheels away, arms spread wide, face twisted in pure joy. Grown men are crying. Strangers are hugging. Fans are climbing over barriers, falling over seats, screaming until their throats bleed. On the pitch, Liverpool players collapse to the ground. John Barnes is on his knees. Kenny Dalglish, the player manager, just stares. The referee blows for full time 38 seconds later. Arsenal are champions for the first time in 18 years. What happened next showed the true spirit of football. The Liverpool fans, 40,000 of them, didn't leave. They stayed. When Tony Adams lifted the league trophy, the Kop applauded. They had just watched their team lose the title in the cruelest way imaginable. 6 weeks after burying 97 of their own. Maybe the flowers Arsenal gave before kickoff had touched them. Maybe they just understood better than anyone that football is only a game. By 1989, English football was dying. Hooliganism, violence, crumbling stadiums. The Heysel disaster in 1985 had gotten English clubs banned from European competition. Politicians called it a slum sport played in slum stadiums watched by slum people. And then came Hillsborough, the darkest day of all. But that night at Anfield, something changed. 18 million people watched Michael Thomas score that goal. They saw the drama, the emotion, the heartbreak, the joy. TV executives realized football could be entertainment. It could be sold to the masses. 3 years later, the Premier League was born. English football was reborn. And it all started with one goal. Michael Thomas, the man who scored the goal? 3 years later, he signed for Liverpool. The fans never let him forget, but they respected him. He went on to win the FA Cup with Liverpool in 1992. Today, Thomas lives in the Northwest. He still gets reminded of that goal every single week, even by Liverpool and Everton fans. It's still slow motion in my head, he says. Every time I see it, I think he's going to get you. He's going to tackle you. Ray Houghton is getting closer. George Graham, Arsenal's manager, called it the greatest victory in Arsenal's history. Brian Moore's commentary, "It's up for grabs now," became one of the most famous lines in football history. Nick Hornby wrote a book about it, Fever Pitch, which became a million seller and introduced football to the middle classes. And Arsenal? They won the league again in 1991. Then came Arsène Wenger, the Invincibles, a new dynasty. But none of it would have happened without that night at Anfield. May 26th, 1989. A night that should have belonged to Liverpool. A night that came 6 weeks after tragedy, when the nation was broken, when football itself was dying. And Arsenal, against all the odds, snatched the title with virtually the last kick of the season. Lee Dixon, Arsenal's right back that night, put it best. The Aguero moment was unbelievable, but when people compare it to '89, I glaze over. That moment at Anfield will never happen again, as long as we're on this planet. That's what makes it so special. 91 minutes and 22 seconds. The greatest night in Arsenal's history. The goal that saved English football. Thomas charging through the midfield. It's up for grabs now.